All right, we're back with you inside of the Africa Forum. It is Running African, and I'm very pleased, very happy to be joined online by my brother and a friend in this segment of the program as we continue our discussion, Mastering the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Professor KABU Maat, Professor Patton Duncan. You might know him as teacher, tutor, mentor of mathematics and physics for 25 years at both the secondary and tertiary levels. And we have been talking about Professor Patton Duncan, Professor KABU Maat in this space a lot about his knowledge of ancient Kemetic cosmogony, cosmology. And he has been here many times, quite a few actually. Every time he comes, we are left stunned, but more informed. And we're very happy to have him back. He has over 25 years in research, teaching, publication, and curriculum development in mathematics, physics, and logic. He holds advanced degrees in physics, quantum theory, and scientific methodology. He sought to establish a resource database, literature, online support material, and expert knowledge on the use of metacognitive, higher order thinking, holistic methodology in creative thinking, and instructional delivery. There's a whole lot more to say about Professor KABU Maat. Professor, good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to the space.
Yes, good morning, Kabu. Thank you for the opportunity to share with your audience the experience and knowledge that I've been blessed to receive from my parents, from Jamaica's schools, from all of this research. I'm very happy to be here.
Right, and we're, as usual, very, very pleased to have you in the space, Prof. I don't know if you heard just now, because I just wanted to pick up immediately the clip we played from the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists, and specifically, all right, do you want to comment on that just now, because I know a lot of that is your field?
Certainly, yes. I'm very familiar with the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists. Just to put it in context, it's an organization that was started right after the detonation of the nuclear bombs in Japan, which concluded World War II, when America decided to bomb Hiroshima, the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. A number of scientists, among whom, of course, were Albert Einstein and others, came together because they were very concerned about the problem of technology and how it could be abused in a variety of ways, in such a way that they wanted to drive home, if you will, the seriousness of the threat of nuclear war, given the fact that soon after World War II, Russia detonated a nuclear device as well.
Yes. So
now we enter that phase they call the Cold War. So yes, it's a very important international body of scientists, which they publish a journal, but then along with that, they try to inform the public and world governments about the positive as well as the potential hazards of the nuclear science. Along with that, over the years, they've expanded to include other forms of threats to civilization, emerging essentially from environmental or technological changes that affect human life. For the most part, I agree with the sense of mission of the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists. However, I'm more in the camp of people who believe that making a clock and referring to it in the language of doomsday clock. It has an indirect effect of creating an atmosphere of constant and imminent danger. When in reality, I would like to also emphasize that the Earth is very, very resilient, and it's also relatively stable. Of all the planets in our solar system, the Earth appears to be the only one that supports life. As far as we know, life has been an ongoing adventure on Earth for several billions of years. This doesn't minimize the dangers of environmental change, but it does put in context that we have actually been threatened, if you will, by much more than human technology over these millions of years. And these things did not wipe out all life on Earth. I'm only saying that in an atmosphere where we are all kind of anxious and worried about the future, it's important to remember the equilibrium, as the ancient Egyptians would call it, the ma'at, that even if at states of extreme transition, you may have a huge exponential thing going on. For example, like this COVID virus.
Yes.
But at the same time, the principles of equilibrium are also at work in the very same systems. So when we look at dynamics from a physics point of view, we have to remember that even though you have the butterfly effect, it doesn't deny that we still have action and reaction, sunrise and sunset.
Explain the butterfly effect. Explain the butterfly effect for our listeners, Prof.
Oh, I'm sorry. The butterfly effect refers to a phenomena that was discovered, or I should say recognized in science, that when you have a system like a seesaw, two children in a park, one goes up, one goes down. It's very predictable. That there is a constant relationship between the height that the child rises on one side of the seesaw with the amount of force that they push off the ground. It's a relatively stable and predictable system. However, if you are piling up sand, let's say you're piling sand or you're going to make cement, there is a point where, as you pile cement higher and higher, that if you just add a little bit of sand, a few grains, you'll get a huge cascade of sand sliding down the side of this pyramid of sand. So what I'm referring to is the fact that in systems, there are points where conditions can approach such a transition state where a tiny change can lead to a huge effect. For a long time, scientists found it very difficult to study these types of phenomena, largely because of the mathematics involved. It seemed to imply that you would need an infinite amount of independent variables. Of course, no one can solve such a problem. But with the discoveries that were made, I would say within the last 100 years, by a variety of researchers in the life sciences and other disciplines, began to notice that there were patterns within the chaos. And this led to the development of what would become nonlinear physics or nonlinear dynamics, and called by the more popular name chaos science. And so this effect became known as the butterfly effect. That if a butterfly was sitting on a plant in, let's say, up in Blue Mountain Peak, and it started to flap its wings, the atmosphere in a nonlinear state, you could have a hurricane way over on the other side of the world. So we must remember that butterflies don't normally create hurricanes. So even if such a thing is possible, it requires a set of fairly anomalous conditions, a very precise matching up of conditions. So if this is one of the things that may have happened, we must all remember, in terms of scientific method, no one actually knows exactly how they started. We quantify the symptoms, and there's a race now to formulate an antidote, which is good. But the ultimate causality would require that someone actually if you will, witnessed the emergence of the virus, which you must know is an extremely difficult thing. And then on top of it, the government of, for the most part, the government of China, at least back then, and maybe this will change some of their policy, actually arrested the scientists, as we all know.
Exactly.
And prevented the information from the virus.
Is it important?
I don't call it Chinese virus, but I'm saying a policy of controlling information, a policy of dictatorially blocking people from doing research will allow a situation like this to get out of control. So in that sense, I'm advocating that people not assume that because, you know, science has entered this quantum domain, it's not an everything goes kind of atmosphere. While at the same time, the things we are seeing in quantum theory are very, very strange compared to our conventional, you know, traditional assumptions about the world.
I'm going to take a quick break, Prof, and when we come back, I want you to explain for listeners what you just said. What is quantum theory? What are the things that we're seeing that are very strange? And you talk about the quantum domain. So we take a quick break. We'll come right back.
All right.
Only Optical Elements has the latest technology lenses and frames to suit your taste and budget. Visit us at 67 Halfway Tree Road. Online at opticalelementsja.com or call 929-8284. Optical Elements. Vision in style. The time by Optical Elements is...
It's now 1 minute after 8 o'clock. You're inside of the Africa Forum. It is Running African. We are putting sustained attention on what's unfolding here. Sound judgment. That's why we reach for people like Professor who is on the line, KABU MAAT, evidence-based debate and assessments. You spoke just as we were going to that time signal, Prof, about the quantum domain. You talk about what we're seeing now that are strange as within the context of quantum theory. First of all, explain to us, when you talk about quantum theory, what are we talking about?
Yes, certainly. And I'll just preface it with something that Albert Einstein would often say. And Einstein is often given the credit as either the person who had this insight that physics needed to change some of its assumptions and so forth, or at least one of the top three, along with a man named Max Planck, a German scientist, and possibly a few others. But Einstein said that unless you can explain the most complicated idea in such a way that it can be understood by a little child, you don't understand it. So I'll try to do what Einstein did. I'll try.
Yes, thank you.
Einstein said that, and he wrote a book about the physics revolution, and it's actually called The History of Physics. He wrote it in collaboration with another famous scientist. If anyone likes to read the book, and I don't even think there's one formula in it, and he does a fairly good job of tracing the history of science. In a nutshell, Isaac Newton, gave us the physics that resembles what we see around us. You throw a rock at a given angle, at a certain velocity, launch velocity, you can predict exactly where the rock is going to fall, how high it will travel. We have used Newtonian physics, the physics of action and reaction, the physics of power and force and energy, have transformed our world. We have cars, we have the kind of nuclear, well, I'm skipping ahead a little here, but we have airplanes. We were able to develop the telephone, and so forth early in the last century, the early 1900s, that gave us the world that we now live in. But that was not the only revolution. Albert Einstein, working as a patent clerk, used to read all these people's submissions for new discoveries. Along with that, he himself was a very brilliant scientist. And he realized that if you were to move, not at the speed of a car on the highway or walking to your neighbor's house, for example, but let's say you could move almost at the speed of light, what would the world look like? Would physics be the same if you moved at the speed of light? And Einstein discovered that the answer is no. When an object moves faster and faster, unlike what we used to think, that physics is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Physics, the laws of nature, change when you move very quickly. In addition to that, because of experiments now, his idea of relativity more came out of his own profound reflections on the nature of motion and so forth, which is a very powerful insight, that the world you see around you is relative to your state of motion. Very powerful. That's a theory of special relativity. Experiments were being done around the same time that gave us strange results. Matter, knock, 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 which seems so solid, people started to discover radiation. Madame Curie and her husband discovered that certain kinds of rocks appear to radiate energy. Now, there was nothing in the science of the time to explain this. Matter, knock, 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 is supposed to be solid, hard, impenetrable. What they realize is that matter can actually change into energy. This was a fundamentally disturbing, physical, empirical, measurable result that contradicted Newton's physics. I cannot overemphasize how fundamentally shocking this was. Not too many years before, a famous scientist had said, well, right now, we just have a few problems left in physics, but chemistry, biology, Darwin's theory, everything seems to make sense. And I predict by the turn of the century, 1900, we will have a complete theory of the universe. Well, within 10 years, 15 years after 1900, physics was in complete disarray. It's somewhat amazing that all these amazing scientists, Einstein, Schrödinger, Madame Curie, a woman, Emily Noether, another woman, little woman, quantum theorists too, a team of amazing people around the world, even Japan, Brazil, they all came together and put their minds and their experimental skills to solve the problem. Once they accepted that the paradigm had to change, the problem became manageable. And Einstein is as one of the shining stars in that group. In his mid-20s, he argued that, one, matter and energy are fundamentally the same thing. Matter can vibrate. Matter can actually behave like a wave, just like light does, or water waves. This was shocking, but the experiments confirmed his ideas. Quantum theory, therefore, emerges out of these discoveries. It's a theory of nature that basically says that energy and matter are fundamentally one reality. One. They're not two separate things. And the other idea that I think would make sense is that energy and matter, however, are mathematically ordered. That's where the word quanta, meaning a portion of measurable. So you have a situation where although matter and energy appear to behave in these exotic ways, we can still predict the behavior because the energy and matter themselves only interact in single-digit units. In other words, like Pythagoras would say, in whole number quanta, 1 quanta, 2 quanta, 3. Most Jamaican students doing CXC or maybe CAPE might be familiar with the atom having electrons in different shells. Those shells are organized arithmetically. They form a series of numbers that ironically or strangely enough match harmonies in music. So what we've seen in quantum theory is that although matter as this ultimate ground of reality is no longer the paradigm, it appears that mathematical harmony and symmetries, orders, these kinds of harmonic frequency relationships to use that language, going back to the ancient theory of a harmonious geometry of nature, that seems to be coming more to the foreground. So that's kind of quantum theory. If I could put it in a nutshell, that's how I describe it.
Yes, and you had said from a quantum theorist perspective, and you reference a quantum domain, that there are strange, if not unusual, observances. So talk to us about that within the context of our understanding.
In other words, for example, the cell phone that I'm talking with you on right now wouldn't work except for these quantum entanglements. The word we use in physics is quantum entanglement, meaning two things are tied together in such a way that they cannot be separated, no matter how far apart they are in space or time. Now, quantum entanglement essentially means that when electrons are traveling, I use a common sense language. When electrons are moving around the atom in their orbits, like how the planets move around the sun, right? We have a situation where normally we would think, oh, okay, I am an electron in Paris, right? And you're an electron in halfway through Jamaica. So we can't communicate. There's no direct connection between us. Well, remember, electrons are not just knock matter. They're actually waves. And a quantum wave does not move, so to speak, in time. What happens in quantum theory is that before we measure something, and we measure, you say, okay, you're in halfway tree, he's in Paris. Well, in the quantum domain, the two electrons interfere. They interfere in that they're inseparable. It's only when, or if, there is some kind of a measurement on the system that we can actually say there is a local electron over here or over there. The mathematical equations of quantum theory do not describe the electron as having a location in one fixed place, like Newtonian mathematics.
Right.
So that means I could theoretically measure something in Paris and know what is happening to the electron in halfway tree. This was tested by a number of scientists, the first of whom was Alain Aspect. It's called the Alain Aspect entanglement experiment, and it's a standard result in modern physics. I must say this, however, it doesn't mean you can actually talk to someone in Paris. It means that in the quantum level of reality, which is extremely small, in that very tiny realm that I call the quantum domain, we see these exotic effects where things appear to behave as if they're immediately interconnected. There's no distance, there's no time. All right? So there are two main theoretical paradigms now. One of them says the quantum domain is just the micro level, the subatomic level. And then there's another paradigm that argues that this extends throughout all levels of the universe, not just the quantum domain. Is there a final conclusion? Well, it's a debate that's ongoing, but I would say the standard model of reality is that at the deepest level of the universe, everything is really so intimately interwoven that it's really just one thing. In physics, we call that the quantum potential.
Right. So that when I say
the universe is undivided,
okay,
so there are no separate things at that level.
Right.
Yes.
So that in this space over the past 30 years, when I say everything is connected, I was onto something.
The physics is saying what most religions, including Christianity in particular, and some of the world religions have said for millennia, that at the deepest level of reality, there really is no me, you, Russia, China, America. We really are fundamentally one. What does that mean? Well, people might interpret it in different ways, but a lot of scientists And I think the scientists at the Bulletin of Atomic Physics, many of them would agree, and people like Michio Kaku, who is a famous American physicist, string theorist, they would agree that, it means that we all do need to learn to recognize that oneness, because physics no longer argues for separate forces and fields. Force fields would be a description of reality at the level that we would call dynamical reality, like we measure objects in motion. But if you're trying to understand the fundamental laws of the universe, what is the electron? Why does it behave that way? What is inside the nucleus? What is a black hole? How did the universe develop from this energy field? You have to deal with that oneness principle. And of course, it has profound implications for how we view the world, how we interact with each other.
You know, I wanted to ask you this because it's a question that, in a different way, that I had posed to my guests before. But as inhabitants of a solar system, and just listening to you talk now, we are not new to the exposure from radio waves, from radiation, and also from the sun, but also from other planets. And we have survived, and so there must have been some measure of adaptation and benefits from those wavelengths and frequencies. So how might emerging technologies right here on Earth, or even from satellites orbiting Earth, as we heard in the discussion from the scientists, the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists, mitigate or otherwise impact natural electromagnetic balance, essential for...
That's so brilliant. I love how you put that together. Yes, there's archaeological evidence of human civilization going back by official archaeology at least 1 million years. And during these different stages of what we observe, for example, in southern Egypt, with they were building the crop stone circles, utilizing patterns that they would see in the sky long before the Egyptian dynasty as a historical reality. And all ancient peoples, going back to content even now, have made records of radio interference from deep space. For example, supernova. A supernova occurs when a star, certain kinds of stars in astrophysics, which is studied extensively, go through stages of growth and they actually change color. A point comes in the nuclear energy transformation within a star when it exhausts all of its usable fuel and it starts to burn at a higher temperature. Skipping over some of the details, this can lead to a situation where the star actually explodes. When that occurs, you get a bright, if it happens near the Earth, people would see a star suddenly flare up to like almost probably the brightness of the moon. And this would have been recorded, and there's evidence of this among the Dogon, among the ancient Nubian civilization, which predates that of dynastic Egypt, the people of Sumer, and so forth, the native peoples in this part of the world, where they would try to draw, and there's even cave drawings in the caves in France and so forth, where people drew these events, and we can recognize that they were really seeing it because modern day astrophysics and astronomy, radio astronomy, gives us pictures that are identical to what these people drew long, long ago. I'm saying this because if you read books like Archaeoastronomy, you know, that the official scientists studying indigenous knowledge of deep space cosmology, it's amazing that human beings have been making these kinds of observations and even incorporating the effects of these changes in how their social relations and calendar systems and all of this, their storytelling. It's really a very vast field. I'm thinking of a book called Hamlet's Mill by
What's the book?
Italian, Hamlet's Mill.
Hamlet's Mill.
HAMLETS, Hamlet's Mill, in which he challenged, I think this book may have been written in the early 80s, in which he challenged the prevailing paradigm of astronomy and archaeology and said, why aren't you guys talking to each other? There's vast astronomical knowledge in the Bible as well, in the Gitas of the Hindu religion, and so forth, where a lot of events that are described as miraculous really testify to the amazing scientific and astronomical knowledge of ancient people. I'm saying that because we are constantly dazed by high-level radiation from outer space. The bulk of it, the Earth's magnetic field, blocks a lot of the radiation, probably most of the dangerous stuff that comes to us from the sun, which is right next door neighbor. We get more radiation from the sun than any 5G tower that we could ever build. But the bulk of it, the Earth has a magnetic field, of course, and that bubble around us shields the Earth from harmful radiation from deep space. We get radiation from even the planet Jupiter, which has electromagnetic storms on that planet that create voltages higher than anything we've ever created on Earth, and so on. X-rays, gamma rays from black holes, from stars in outer space. I'm making the universe sound really interesting right now. It is interesting, but it's on a scale like a huge pond, and we're like a little reef in that pond. Most of the really interesting, exciting stuff kind of passes right by us, fortunately. So what I'm saying is that radiation in general at a high enough dosage is dangerous. But we scientists have been studying, at least in this contemporary period, for at least 100 and some odd years, and I would find it highly immoral and irresponsible if, in fact, these cell phone towers, as reputed by many of my extreme theorists, and some of them are scientists, you know, my view is that there may be some potential hazard from any kind of radio tower if you're like living right underneath it.
Yes. Because
the closer you are to such a thing, the higher the radiation. It kind of tapers off.
But what if you're not living right under it?
I am not a radio technologist.
Yeah.
But from what I've understood, I don't think it is as imminent of a danger as people are saying from official scientists. I don't get that impression. I do believe, however, that the potential danger of 5G being used by like dictatorial government to interfere in the freedoms that we enjoy as people that live in, you know, idealistically democratic societies, that might be more of a threat than any direct
physical. So the human body, when we come back at 9 o'clock, because you're going to come back at 9 and we have about 5 to 7 minutes in this segment. But so I want to pick up from there where you talk about the potential dangers of 5G, not so much what we're thinking it is, but more of the use of it by for surveillance, dictatorship, and so on. Now, but just to follow up on the question that you're answering and the response you're making, the human body itself is not just physical; it is electromagnetic also. So we're thinking that every individual is giving off their own radiation, be it from the heart or the brain or the body as a whole. In this regard, how then might the proximity and the increased usage and the exposure, you talk about like to the telephone, but to the technology emitting radio frequencies or the EMF affect us generally, but in particularly our thoughts, our thinking, and our mentality?
Well, that is a pretty deep thing that you brought up there, and it has many levels of deepness to it. The best way I can approach it is with the word biophotons. Biophotons, or biological light. A scientist named Professor Kirlian, you may remember something called Kirlian photographs from the 70s and the 80s. There was a scientist who was measuring the voltage emitted by living things. Biological processes involve electricity. You know, you feel your body, it feels warm. You know, your cells have electrical voltage. And what she noticed is that when she measured these voltage changes in plants and animals and people, that the voltages changed based on the time of day, whether the person was sleeping, angry, happy, sad. In addition, to bring her research up to date, a Japanese scientist, his name is Emoto. Have you heard of him? He studies the effects on water of intention. Now, as far as I know, and this is, I'm saying this with several caveats, because I've never reproduced his experiments myself, but it appears that a person's mood can affect there's a biofield. Your body has an energy field,
like a force field. What we call a force field?
We call it a force field.
Yeah.
Yes. And this field is essentially caused by the electrical activity within your cells. That's not hard for people to understand. For example, if you watch a movie like Predator, when the alien is looking for Arnold Schwarzenegger or whomever they're fighting with, the sci-fi movie shows him looking at them by seeing their body radiation. All right? Now, that radiation is real. It's like a light bulb. But we call it biophotons. People can research that afterwards.
Yes.
So in other words, this biophoton field is very special, though, because it's not like light coming out of a bulb. Light coming out of the bulb is not integrated or coherent light. Biophotons are coherent, meaning all of these photons, their waveforms match or in similar frequency. All right? So you might almost say each person has their own biophotonic signature.
So is it fair to say then that we're giving off light?
Yes,
and energy. All right.
You are in fact giving off light, and it wouldn't be wrong for me to use the language of Star Wars when one of the characters says, "We are not made of flesh and bone. Beings of light are we. We're actually more like light beings." Now, here's what's important about that: if you shift your mood, then you are in fact affecting this force field. Now, I know a scientist would say to me, "Oh, you're speaking, what frequency is it?" and all of that. I know, but we're speaking in the domain of a public audience. So anyone who wants the scientific references, go to Princeton University, okay, and look up what's called the Institute for Anomalous Research. Okay, they're the ones that published the original research on the biophotonic field, and they also measured the biophotonic activity of crime, areas where there's high crime.
Prof, let me interrupt you, Prof, because I have to go for the Supreme Ventures draw, so we're going to do two things. We're going to do the Supreme Ventures draw, and we come back with you at 9 o'clock. So we also have the news. So I want to pick up with right at this point you're leaving off, and also then to segue into the next point of your own thinking of the it's just for short, the surveillance dictatorship.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Vibration.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Let's do this together.
All right. We're back with you inside of the Africa Forum. It is Running African. Thank you so much for joining. You know, my dear sister Nana Baino Bello out of Haiti sent me this clip that I am... Can we play that clip? All right, I wanted to play this for you in this period. I listened to it and I thought, yeah, interesting. Let me have this as part of the program for this morning. We're hoping to play that clip. If not, let's do this. All right, okay, as soon as we can, we will. All right, so good morning to you, Professor Baino Bello, and those who can tell her that I said good morning. She is in Haiti and has been doing great works during this lockdown, generally, global lockdown. One of the things she's been doing is ensuring that as a people, we are understanding what's happening around us, the processes, and looking within self. They called for the libation. Many of us poured libation a few days ago at 7 o'clock. We, across the globe, as Pan-Africans and spiritual Pan-Africans, we poured libation at 7 o'clock recently. All right. So we're not able to carry the clip, but let's do this and we'll see if we can. We're taking note of the speech given by Queen Elizabeth on, not the Easter Sunday one, but the one last week Sunday. Quite an interesting speech. We did talk about the the monarchy's apparent preoccupation with ongoing events relating to the coronavirus. Interesting. Queen Elizabeth of England has emerged as the global leader in this process. Have you noticed that? I'm not quite sure if you're paying attention, but have you noticed that? On the 5th of April, 2020, which is last week Sunday, we listened to the broadcast of the speech by Queen Elizabeth of England, and this was actually shot on the 2nd of April at Windsor Castle, where she and her husband are self-isolating. What I thought about the message is that the timing of the message, in a moment when all other world leaders are grappling with oversight and coordination and management of a global crisis, was calculated, and it was done so with great precision and with accuracy. She alone occupies a position and vantage point that affords a continuous global visibility and recognition. There was another speech this morning, and we're told it's the first time she's recorded her Easter Sunday speech. But the monarchy did not waste this crisis, and is not wasting this crisis. And we see the monarchy, and I'm saying the monarchy as opposed to the Queen, cementing its validity and relevance in an era and climate where many might consider them obsolete. So Queen Elizabeth II, demonstrated her experience, her leadership in disrobing her ceremonial vestiture and donned the centuries-of-old mantle of empire and power last week Sunday. She spoke for 4 minutes, and she did so in a uniquely complex tenor of clarity, of charm, of compassion. We felt all of that, the sincerity, reassurance, certitude, courage, you name all of that, complete embodiment of the crown, while she addressed the UK, the Commonwealth, and the global community. The rarity of a message like this from the world's longest reigning monarch on only 3 previous occasions during her reign, we were told. One, 1991 Gulf War, 1997 before Princess Diana's funeral, the 2012 the Queen Mother's death, and once as a 14-year-old princess, 1940 during World War II, ironically also from Windsor Castle. And this particular speech when she was 14 was described as a symbol of defiance and a beacon of hope against a superior enemy. So at that time, Britain was on the brink of defeat and desperate for an ally. Then Prime Minister Winston Churchill, if you recall and know the history, believed the young Elizabeth could charm America into declaring war on the Nazis, and he sought permission of her father, George VI, to have her read a speech for radio broadcast to offer comfort to homesick young evacuees sent overseas, but more importantly, to charm America into joining the war as an ally. And the Windsor speech then was a massive success. It was front page news, and the skeptical American public was won over by the princess of 14. Last week Sunday, the Queen did not once mention the coronavirus. Go back to listen to that 4-minute speech. Not once did she mention the coronavirus, but she noted, and I quote, "While we have faced challenges before, this one is different. This time we join with all nations across the globe in a common endeavor. And once again, the topic for this morning's program is Mastering the Fourth Industrial Revolution. That's a common endeavor. And she thanked everyone on the NHS front line, and in closing, reassured the public. This is what she said, and I'm quoting again. Better days will return. We will be with our friends again. We will be with our families again. We will meet again. The parallels is what I'm drawing your attention to. 8 decades apart are remarkable, even as we speculate the impact of this speech against the success of the first one. Remarkable at a time of change, etc. Go back and listen to the speech. You're inside of the Africa Forum. It is Running African. Our topic this morning, of course, is Mastering the Fourth Industrial Revolution, and all that it takes to master that is what we're looking at this morning inside of the program, what we've been looking at for the last few weeks, actually. I was telling you earlier about a clip that was sent to me by Professor Baino Bello, Nana Bello, from Haiti. As a matter of fact, I know I see this going around also outside, but she did send it to me first. And I'm going to be playing it now because I thought it was relevant to the times we're living in, relevant to some of the conversations we've been having. And so here we go. Let's listen.
Nearly 2,400 years ago in ancient Greece, Plato discussed the importance of population control. Aristotle advocated the use of abortion and infanticide. In 1798, an essay on the principle of population was written by Thomas Malthus. He outlined the idea of positive checks, which are diseases, wars, disasters, famines, and genocides. Malthus believed that these things should be utilized to increase the death rate, and believed that human misery was an absolute necessary consequence. In 1859, Charles Darwin published The Origin of Species. In it, Darwin only hinted at the implications of human populations, but his cousin, Sir Francis Galton, became obsessed with the idea. In 1883, Galton published Inquiries into Human Faculty and Its Development, wherein he wrote that his intention is to touch on various topics more or less connected with that of the cultivation of race, or, as we might call it, with eugenic. The term comes from the Greek word eugenis, of noble birth. In the early 20th century, eugenics became an academic discipline in universities. Organizations were formed and funded to win public support. The Kaiser Wilhelm Institute and the Cold Spring Harbor Institute rejected the idea that all humans are born equal and began selling the idea of cultivating a new master race of noble bloodlines. Planned Parenthood was formed in America by racial eugenics advocate Margaret Sanger. President of IBM, Thomas J. Watson, established a special subsidiary in Poland called Watson Business Machines to assist in the Nazi invasion of Poland. This business continued throughout the war, and IBM managed the entire operation from their headquarters in New York. During the Nuremberg trials, the Nazis quoted U.S. Supreme Court Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes in their own defense. They claimed that their eugenics program was being run from the United States. The Nazis were rightly admonished for war crimes, but not Thomas Watson. He went on to create the IBM World Trade Corporation and passed IBM on to his son. His granddaughter ended up marrying Margaret Sanger's grandson. Bill Gates' father worked on the board for Planned Parenthood, and his mother worked on the corporate board for IBM, who Bill partnered with to create Microsoft. With no medical background, Bill Gates then went on to become the world's foremost pusher of vaccines and population control. Do you think this is all coincidence? The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation funds the WHO, the NIH, the CDC, and the UN. And now he is saying that until we get mass vaccinations, we might never be able to gather in groups.
In which activities like mass gatherings may be, in a certain sense, more optional. And so until you're widely vaccinated, those may not come back at all.
The president's coronavirus response team are all pushing the Bill Gates vaccination agenda. Dr. Fauci is on the leadership council for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. In January of 2017, Anthony Fauci told a crowd at Georgetown University that there would be a surprise outbreak during the Trump presidency.
There is no question that there will be a challenge to the coming administration in the arena of infectious diseases, both chronic infectious diseases in the sense of already ongoing disease, and we have certainly a large burden of that, but also there will be a surprise outbreak.
Deborah Birx is a board member for the Global Fund to Fight AIDS, Tuberculosis, and Malaria, which was founded by the Gates Foundation and known for millions of dollars of fraudulent misuse of funds. In October of 2019, Bill Gates sponsored Event 201, a simulation that estimated 65 million people killed by coronavirus. In November of 2019, the Purebright Institute, funded by Bill Gates, was granted European patent number EP3172319B1 for a coronavirus vaccine that may be used to treat humans. Today, Dr. Fauci says the virus will keep coming back, and he says the ultimate game changer will be a new vaccine. In Australia, the Prime Minister is telling people the shutdown will last months, that it's the new normal, and that the only way out of your homes is to accept the vaccine. There is no proof that vaccines are the answer. In fact, the CDC admitted in federal court that it does not have studies to support the claim that vaccines do not cause autism. A top UN scientist admitted that vaccines are killing people. It is time to do some hard thinking. Will you allow your government to impose forced vaccinations? For Infowars.com, this is Greg Reese.
All right, that report there from Infowars. It's interesting, and, all of us, we are listening to the conversations regarding vaccines. We heard the two French doctors. I deliberately didn't even pay much mind to that in this space because it is really not worth my time. Also, we heard the response of the WHO. The WHO is complicit in so much. And when I posed the question a few weeks ago of how come we all of a sudden we are trusting the state, the global state, the local state, and the way that we've never trusted the state before to be the leader in this critical time of crisis, I was reported to the broadcast regulator for creating public mischief. And I know. And last week, when I raised other questions relating to 5G technology, I was reported to one of the telecommunications giant regarding what I said, but then it was misrepresented as the case with the report to the broadcast regulator. Now, I'd just like to say something. Our broadcast regulator must not be weaponized. It must not be used as a weapon against broadcasters who are speaking with the voice of critical thinking and deep thinking in a time of crisis. There's something happening here that it really gets my goat, and that is you are expected not to speak truth to power, not to speak at all if you have a dissenting view. You must shut up and you must not say anything. You are expected not to speak, not to give voice to your critical thinking, not to give voice to your deeper thinking and your deepest thinking. You're expected to remain silent. And they have weaponized, or they are weaponizing the Constitution. And I'm not quite sure at the last press conference I heard. I'm very concerned about some of the things I heard in that press conference in terms of what is being looked at again in the Constitution and so on. We have Constitution reform in this space forever and ever. Amen. So help me God. And they made it sound as if you're going to have 15 town hall meetings, take it around the country, talk to people, and it's like pulling teeth, really. But now we're hearing that so much is happening as far as the Constitution is concerned. It's constitutional reform, The very same thing that we've been calling for. But what are they looking at? Where is the voice of civil society? Where is the voice of the media? Where are the questions that must be asked at these press conferences? Why are we so concerned about the numbers that are hospitalized, where they come from, the numbers that are dead? Why is it that is our major, narrow focus? It is because they're telling us that this is what we must be concerned about. Now, I want to make one thing clear. COVID, SARS-CoV-2, the coronavirus is already here. We must protect ourselves that we do not get it. We can do that by boosting our immune system. We can do that by doing a lot of what they're telling us, just pure hygiene. Because this is a virus that attacks the respiratory system. So the hygiene is important. The avoiding of a close contact with anyone with cold or flu-like symptoms, that's important, and so on. Protect yourself against the virus. And then now, let us talk about the other issues. For example, is the Constitution under threat? And what kind of threat and by whom? We had at least have to ask that question. Are our fundamental rights being hijacked? By whom and how and so on? Why we can't ask those questions? We must ask them. And this idea of vaccine is another question that we're going to have to face full head on. Because you know that the next thing they're going to come with is that you all have to be vaccinated. And we don't know if the virus is not going to be in the vaccine. I'm just saying that because we are African people who have survived on many levels, this very same thing, where we are vaccinated with polio vaccine, but we die of polio in droves in Nigeria, where syphilis experiments are carried out on us in Tuskegee, where in Jamaica, our mothers were made to test Depo-Provera, the injection for what Depo-Provera is for again, birth control, for decades without knowing. Many died from cancer. They were the guinea pigs. So we have a right to raise all of these questions in this space. Every single one of them. Everyone. We're concerned about vaccine. Yes, we are. You know, we heard while Cuba is sending nurses and doctors and so on to the Caribbean for assistance at this time, and China is sending masks and ventilators and so on, and Russia sending similar stuff. What other countries are assisting? The United States, if you notice, is sending a warship. In the Congress at Capitol Hill, there is dissent over that. Not everybody agrees. The warship is being sent to the zone on the pretext of it being fighting drug trafficking in the region. You know all about the CBSI, the Caribbean Basin Security Initiative, and everything that was signed and not signed. We'll talk about that another time. Our concern should be about our government, though, and where does the Andrew Holness-led administration stand in all of this? Right after we had the announcement, and everything is connected, right? Everything is connected. Right after we had the announcement that the warship was being sent into the Caribbean to fight drugs. It's the biggest warship sent into the region since Noriega was deposed, the coup. So now it's in the Caribbean. The thinking, though, in the United States is that it is being sent into the Caribbean for whatever showdown is going to happen with Venezuela and Maduro. And this is why we must be very concerned about where our government stand on this. If there's going to be a coup in Venezuela and the Caribbean waters, including the Jamaican waters, and the Jamaican government is facilitating this, then we must also ask questions, because this is happening in the middle of the COVID-19. So we must begin to ask ourselves questions about that. Well, right after we had that announcement, we also had another announcement. I don't think a day passed that the U.S. Embassy in Kingston was giving to the Jamaican government some $75 million to help in the fight against the coronavirus. So I read the fine prints of that, you see. And the fine prints, in the fine prints, one of the things that the money is going to be used for is event-based surveillance. And event-based surveillance, I didn't know what it meant, so I looked it up. And it's the organized and rapid capture of information about events that are potential risk to public health, such as rumors or ad hoc reports that are being transmitted through formal and informal channels, such as media. And, media. This is the event-based surveillance we're talking about. So part of that 75 million that's being given to the Jamaican government by the U.S. government, the U.S. Embassy here in Kingston, part of that money is to be used for event-based surveillance. That explains to me, and I said everything is connected, that explains to me why 2 minutes after I came off air, I am media talking about issues and why we're trusting the state. I am reported for being a risk to public health, causing public mischief. Now, we're going to have to stand up as journalists. We're going to have to stand together as broadcasters. We're going to have to stand together in this moment that we're bearing witness to, because everything is against the truth coming out. Everything is against the truth coming out, including the aid. We're still going to be asking questions about that warship that is being sent into the Caribbean waters. We have to ask those questions, and we have to challenge our government on whether or not you are backing, facilitating a coup against an elected government within the region. We're talking about Venezuela, which has been a friend and a partner to Jamaica for so long. This is another thing that's happening right in the middle of stay at home, stay where you are, physical distance, social distance, self-isolate. Do you understand what I'm saying? Every single thing is connected. When we come out of this, who are we when we come out of this? That is a question. That's a question. Who are we when we come out of this? I'm just giving you a moment to think about it. I'm going to go back to the phone lines now. My very special guest is standing by. By the way, just before we go to the phone lines quickly, there's a protest letter of African ambassadors in Beijing to what's happening to Africans in China. And, that's been widely circulated. We're going to talk about it if we get some chance later on. All right, let me go to the phone line where quantum physicist, mathematician, kinetic, holistic practitioner is on the line, scientist extraordinaire, my very good friend and brother, Professor KABU Maat. You know him also as Professor Patton Duncan. We're looking at, among other things, how quantum theory answers the problems that we are currently faced with, the challenges we're faced with. Professor KABU, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Right.
I wanted to reconnect to our discussion of the energy system of the human body.
Yes.
To point out that Western science has reached the position in terms of measurement, of actually measuring not only the energy of the body and the biofield, but actually the biofield of each organ, the stomach, the heart, your hands, and so forth. Associated to these, there have been calculations of specific relationships that occur between the human being and their terrestrial environment that are not just physical. In other words, like animals and plants, we react to the ambient radiation of the sun, of the soil, of water, so that we are all constantly involved in multi-dimensional energy relationships, constantly, simultaneously, literally right now. And this is a good thing, because the body doesn't maintain its health in isolation. Health is not a singular individual event. It is healthy in relationship to others, healthy in relationship to one's diet, how much sleep you get, how you manage your emotions, all of these things interact to give us maat. I'm using the Egyptian term. Some people may be more familiar with the Chinese concept of Tao, or the way of things, Tai Chi. That means that there is a kind of balancing energy that sustains living systems. Now, if we understand the radical implication that modern physics is actually confirming knowledge from ancient civilizations, from Chinese Taoist martial arts masters, from Native American, Navajo and Hopi healers, who have shown that we must remember the mental, the psychological, and the emotional aspects of our own reality. Things can't be physical because there is the observer, the role of the observer. And I'm saying it this way because science is only power. Science is a form of power. It is neither good nor evil. Thus, I can use fire to cook food, or I can use it to burn down a building. So moral questions about how we use technology, where we're using technology, and ultimately what is the long-term sustainable benefit to us and our life being, the ecology of life on Earth, are just as important as what is the new 5G phone. Wow, we'll have holograms and I'll be able to project an image of myself. In other words, we really are, as a civilization, on the verge of what could be a new stage of human creativity and innovation, or one in which we use these technologies or allow them to be used in a way that is harmful or destructive to our freedoms. Look at the atomic bomb. Nuclear energy is a good thing. The sun runs on nuclear energy. But the same bomb, in the context of geopolitics, became a weapon of intimidation. I think we're in a similar place today with digital technology, and the key is to be responsible. Get the objective information. Make decisions as citizens and influence your leaders to make positive decisions using the technology that will improve our lives. But a lot of people bury their heads in the sand, or YouTube, I had to go there, because they're not sure, what does it mean? Where do I go? For my part, technology can be a good. I don't see 5G necessarily as a bad. Like anything, it has to be used consciously with objective knowledge and with the appropriate guards for our environment, for our health, and for the freedoms that we have all.
But that is the crux of the matter, isn't it, Perf? That is the crux of the matter. It is how it is being used or going to be used. And I want to take a quick break. I'm sorry, I do have to take this quick break and come back and pick up right there. 5G technology. You're saying you don't see it as bad necessarily, but how it is being used. Exactly. That's the question. Let's take a quick break. Mastering the Fourth Industrial Revolution, and my very special guest in this segment of the program, quantum physicist, mathematician extraordinaire, Professor KABU MAAT, Professor Patton Duncan. Professor, just to back up a moment. So you said you don't see 5G as being bad necessarily. I can tell you that as was the case earlier, I'm seeing a lot of responses both on the social media, in every place that our listeners can reach me. They're saying that it is bad. Many feel that it is the cause of the current virus that we're experiencing, and there is some kind of outrage in terms of persons' response to whether or not 5G technology is bad. Why do you say you don't see it as being bad necessarily?
Well, essentially because of one of my heroes, the famous Nikola Tesla. Remember that Nikola Tesla, over 100 years ago, was one of the early inventors and promoters of radio technology. And among other things, he invented hundreds, possibly thousands of components and devices, including alternating currents, the principle of the rotating magnetic field, and he attempted, through the building of something that he called the Walden Cliff Tower, he tried to build an early form of what would essentially be a cell phone tower. He believed that he could transmit information, and eventually one day, he said, before TV was invented, one day humanity will be able to transmit images, libraries of books to each other. Hear that? And that one day we'll even transmit energy, so we'll solve the world energy problem. Now, I am not as well read in Tesla as I should be, but what I understand from Tesla is the same tower, he said, could be used as a kind of weapon. In other words, the energy that is transmitted by Tesla's, at least his concept idea, there's a controversy about whether he ever really completed, his discovery and things of that sort, but officially speaking, it could be used to transmit energy that could harm people, like an enemy or something. Now, this was a relatively long time ago. Many of Tesla's discoveries are components of our contemporary telecommunication systems. What I'm arguing for is scientific methodology. If someone says that 5G towers are dangerous, full stop, I am not saying I disagree with them. I am saying provide the scientific evidence. And I'm saying this because if we are to counter disinformation and win this information war that's going on, we're not going to do it because we've accepted a belief that 5G is evil and we've been running with it for so long that we just think it's evil. I haven't heard anyone, I have not seen a hard proof similar to a proof I would accept in a physics lab, in other words. And the second thing I want to say is Tesla himself, Tesla's discoveries were blocked by the business interests in the United States because they were afraid that he was going to empower people with free energy. So they started to spread rumors, Westinghouse and even Thomas Edison, the inventor of the light bulb, that Tesla's power would have killed people. Listen to how similar this is. So the government of the United States blocked Tesla from building any more of his transmission towers. In other words, that second reason is very poignant for me. Tesla had a new technology to share with the world, but the rumors about it being dangerous and it's going to kill people is essentially what stopped Tesla from being able to help with and remember how much the world has already been empowered by the internet. Yes, people are using it in negative ways, but it's allowing us all to connect with people in ways we have never done before. So I would say my judgment is still open, but I'm willing to accept that more needs to be done to safeguard citizens' health in general when it comes to technology, even these cell phones. And I'm also going to agree that if governments or private organizations use the technology in a way that spies on people and is tracking them, the things you were describing, such activity is actually illegal in most countries in the world. So, there's something happening here that I find interesting. If there is such a conspiracy, all right, then let's expose it for what it is, and the people involved should be exposed and prosecuted. It shouldn't really be... I find it strange that everyone seems to believe that the scientists are hiding the truth about 5G.
And the politicians are telling the truth. So it is.
I'm not hiding any secret about 5G.
And this is where it gets tricky for me, and this is why I keep asking the question about this implicit and explicit trust that we have now placed in the state as opposed to the science. It used to be that we looked to the science for the answers. Now we're looking to the state and ignoring the science. And I find that interesting to say the least.
I agree with you that it's not, I'm not so much agreeing with any particular state.
Yes.
I'm actually trying to say as a scientist that everybody on YouTube, I'm going to speak like I'm that important, all of these people need to really know what a scientific process of research and verification is. Because I've seen things like we didn't land a man on the moon, for example. Now, the Apollo space mission was one of the signature moments for me growing up in the 70s that inspired me to become a scientist. I've studied about the pyramids of Egypt. I know about Maat and all that too. But at the same time, what are we going to do? Deny factual reality and start to say that millions of scientists around the world, including me, are participating in a conspiracy against everybody else? I don't know if that sounds right to me.
Right. You know, I think we can
filter out some of these things and get to what's at the bottom of it.
Yeah, because a lot of it can be debunked.
That needs to be done.
A lot of it can be debunked. For example, there is one that's gone viral with a well-spoken man who sounds like he knows what he's saying and identifies himself as having worked with the 5G technology, but then talking now about why the virus was caused by 5G. And the first thing he said is wrong, because his premise is all wrong. His premise is that it started in Wuhan because of the 5G. So it started in Wuhan because of a 5G, where there's not necessarily that 5G. If you're going to talk about the testing of 5G in China, then you have to go Beijing and Shanghai. And that's so that the first premise is wrong. And then he talked about Russia not having any cases of coronavirus because Russia has not rolled out the 5G. But Russia is testing 5G. And outside of that, because Russia is testing 5G, but Russia is not necessarily testing 5G. And outside of that, Russia was not reporting. We know now today that Russia is forced to report, and so that also is debunked. And so you can pull it apart and debunk a lot of what is being said. But let us go back to the science, because your perspective on this also is that, all right, so this is going to enable a lot. It is how it is going to be used. And one of the things that you talk about is surveillance dictatorship. Explain to us why you are concerned about this.
Well, because most of the researchers in the cyber, artificial intelligence, digital systems, they have the same concern that I do. I'll remind our listening audience that the movie The Matrix, which came out in 1999 with Neo and Trinity and Morpheus, was made by what they call Generation X, of which I'm a member. We are the same people who created your cell phones and all of that. So in other words, there is a concern among the regular scientific community, even within the digital revolution community and all the gurus like Bill Gates and all of them, that these technologies must be safeguarded because they can potentially place in the hands of people, as we've already seen. They have hacked into banking systems within the last 5 or 6 to 10 years. It's been on the news that interconnectivity means that your ability to influence people and have access to people is much higher than if you were not connected. So it's kind of a common sense idea too. Every time that we have a new technology, the technology tends to get ahead of human rights and sometimes even basic health rights, rights to a healthy life and all of that. And then everyone else kind of catches up and starts correcting things. By which then democracies need to put in place laws and systems to ensure that these new technologies do not undermine the rights and the freedoms that we have had before this digital revolution. Many of these questions wouldn't have even been asked by the framers of the American Constitution or even the League of Nations and then successively the United Nations, because they didn't exist. So this new frontier implies a new level of ethical, legal, and ecological basically legislation. I'm kind of way out of my league here because I'm only a scientist. But from what I understand from my own understanding of physics and how physics has interacted with the world since 1945, it is a responsible citizen then who doesn't just accept the new device or the new gadget, but informs themselves. And through sources that are reliable, like IRIEFM, like the United Nations, like the Jamaican government offices. In other words, we as people need to access and make evaluative judgments before we make posts. Because a student of mine came to me and said, why do I believe a man landed on the moon? And I wrote Newton's law of gravity on the board because I was wondering if he had been in class. We had just finished celestial mechanics, looking at how you design rockets and stuff. I said, well, why are you asking me that? He showed me a YouTube where someone was making this fabulous claim. Now, mind you, if you can prove it,
yes.
I didn't go to the moon.
Yes.
You can prove it, I'll accept it, that it was a video stage in Hollywood. But no one's going to make me deny Newton's 3 laws, which are still correct in quantum theory.
Yes.
You know what I mean? There is still a sense that people are swallowing information uncritically. Let me ask this question, right? The Wuhan circumstance. When someone argued that the 5G tower in Wuhan arguably caused, the problem to me as a scientist is when you implicate causality, there is a serious set of standards of experiment, observation, peer review before you would even dare put something like that out.
Yes.
For the risk that you're going to be exposed as a fraud or worse, as a lunatic or something. I'm not going to lie. And it has happened to scientists with 3 PhDs. It has happened to people as great as Einstein. You must use the methodology. Now, mere association in time or space is not causality. If there's a cell phone tower next to my house, and at the same day they build it, all of a sudden, I start to get sick, that might not be caused by the cell phone tower, simply because proximity is not necessarily causality.
How does...
So I'm not saying that the cell phone tower may be perfectly safe, but I'm saying that the community of scholars that's emerging on planet Earth, now that knowledge has become decentralized, if we don't want to lose the freedom of communicating with each other around the world and sharing information, as it seems to be implied by some of what I'm hearing going on, we need to be more responsible on our side too. YouTube is a kind of zoo of fantasy and fact, wisdom and folly.
Can we talk a bit? Yes, go. No, finish that thought.
So in other words, I'm asking the people who might be lashing out at me. I am not promoting a new wave of digital colonialism where the powers that be go in and they exploit Africa with 5G. Actually, that's what I'm fighting. That's what I'm fighting against. Because the danger, as I said, of manipulating information, creating fake news with a snap of a finger, and people increasingly not exercising their own independent, cosmologically based, critical thinking, like my colleague Raoul Nefra Amen teaches, learning to think on both sides of the brain, the right, intuitive, and the left, analytical. We have to reclaim the digital mind. The human mind is the real tool. The computer, at the end of the day, can only do harm if you are thinking.
And as you talk about the human mind, I want to quote His Imperial Majesty, the Emperor Haile Selassie here, because he is speaking of spirituality. He states that spirituality is a network linking us to the Most High, the universe, and each other as the essence of our existence. It embodies our culture, true identity, nationhood, and destiny. Now, I wanted to ask you, though, that as people of ancient Kemet, we are deeply locked into spirituality. How might artificial intelligence, advancing technologies devoid of spirituality, impact or interrupt that spiritual energy network that sustains us, that defines us, possibly even threatening our identity or culture or destiny or very existence?
Yes, I think this is the critical thing here now, because the ancients used technology. In fact, the Egyptians were, if not the earliest, they were certainly one of the most preeminent ancient technological societies. You know, they designed an airplane was found in the Senmut, the sarcophagus of Shechem Tutankhamen, the one who is called King Tut. The design of the airplane is aerodynamic. In other words, a plane designed that way, they thought it was a design of a bird. No, it is aerodynamically correct, meaning that if the Egyptians now had this kind of understanding, why didn't they push their technology to the stage that we have today? Why did they strive instead to live in harmony, not only with the need for national economic growth and development, but with the living environment, the River Nile being their clock, if you will? In other words, we live in an environment that is a biotechnology already. And there are cycles going on around us constantly in nature, in the sky, in the earth that we are ignoring, largely because of our preoccupation with a kind of technological misanthropism, if I can use that word, the technological gigantism. We are not just technology. Technology has become our religion today, by which then, if 5G is pushing us further along that line, for that reason, I would not like 5G. For the reason that thus far we have not learned to be still, to listen to our inner voice. We're listening to YouTube, to people talking on you know, I am arguing for a more balanced culture of self, where any form of technology, 5G, 6G, is subordinated to the primary purpose of cultivating human consciousness and our living relationship with the universe around us. Ma'at means balance, and she didn't fly away. Her wings are right here. We call it mathematics. The same mathematics, but the essential difference, not just quantitative, but qualitative. Not just technological, but spiritual. I don't believe in putting microchips in people. See, this issue is incredibly deep, you know. Because some people would hear me as saying, oh, okay, so we're going to merge with the computer. No. The computer is a tool. You are supposed to merge with the universe within yourself. The Egyptians never needed our technology because by all evidence, they were intuitive and mathematical. Maybe even telepathic for all I know. I have no evidence, but I suspect. The point I'm making is then, if we are to reclaim healthy buildings, healthy lives, healthy communities with strong immune systems, we're going to have a better mind, positive, calm, peaceful like our ancient ancestors, reflective. We're going to have to stop fighting with one another, build better social relationships, so we don't have to be distant even if we're sick. We can still embrace one another because we are beings of light, not just sick people who have to hide in their houses. You know, we don't have to run from technology because our brain is way more interconnected than 5G. Mathematicians have proven that the human neural network, their mind, has the same degree of complexity of connection as the universe. But they don't see the meaning. The Egyptians understood what this means. As above, so below. As within, so without. We deviated from that path. Over several thousand years, we have gone further and further away from ourselves and thus from everything around us. Technology must not become a new trap for the human spirit. Because, you know what, Kabu?
Yes.
If we allow ourselves to be put inside this cage and don't become controllers, not abusers, but masters, I love that title you have, masters of the fourth industrial revolution, means that we will learn the mistakes of the first three and never ever again repeat them. You know?
Yes.
Because have you ever seen a car driving without a driver? You know? We would say such a thing is impossible, or a man doesn't know where he's going. You say, yo, this car I drive you. They're coming with driverless cars. In other words, we've so deviated that the path back to balance, a lot of our language is still not even in the place it needs to be, you know. Nature is a technology. When you see a rose or a lotus rise, and then the sun rises and the lotus opens, do you know that's very much like a 5G, a living 5G tower? Yeah. But the veil before our eyes is that we're trying to reclaim a sense of normality that was already abnormal.
Yes.
We got to go deeper. And we will find that as we do that, technology isn't something that we'll be afraid of. We'll begin to shape technologies, maybe even new technologies, that are more organic and useful to the average human being. Not sweatshops to build components for 5G towers and go into a village where no one is really eating any proper food and the government is corrupt. I'm talking about where they build these things now in China. You know, forgive me, all the Chinese listeners. I'm not talking about you, the oppressive government. We don't have a civilization on Earth. We're not civil. So the weaponization of the atom should have taught us a lesson. 5G existed before we did. Radio waves have been traveling from the beginning of the universe and forever, long before us. The Egyptians refer to Nut, and they literally show waves coming down to the earth. And it is written in the pyramid of Unas. It says, behold, from the sky, life for the birds, the cows, the people. Breathe,
how does that understanding, getting back to the source is what I hear you saying, back
into ourselves,
spiritually. How does that understanding assist us with all the questions we have about the technologies?
We're all kind of indoors now, so one good thing about this, using math, or the Chinese would say, Confucius says, when it rains, you don't complain, you put out a pot and collect the celestial dew. You know, these deep wisdoms apply now especially. Turn the situation to your advantage. We need to learn how to protect our immune system. That's what I'm hearing. And is it a fact that radio waves may, in fact, of sufficient density of rads actually cause? Of course, we know this. But guess what the average person should be doing? Get in touch with your healthiest way of being and start to live it. Learn to think in a way that is constructive and creative. Overcome your own obstacles, your own negativity. Learn to relate to your life all around you, people, animals, plants, as if we are all part of one divine reality.
You'd have to have a total paradigm shift, vibrating at a whole different level. As we talk about mastering the fourth industrial revolution, we're seeing this interplay, and I've been reading a lot about this between the nanotechnology, brain research, 3D printing, mobile networks, as you've been pointing out, and quantum computing. They're creating realities that were previously unthinkable. So in this space, I suppose the level of mindfulness, but the reality is also what I just underscored. So how do we? This is a conundrum for many. You know that, Prof.
I think it's a conundrum for me too. Remember, no one can know the future. You know? Knowing implies that something will not change. But anyone who thinks that this is a doomsday situation, or anyone who thinks, wow, the perfect time to buy stock, you know, The problem is no one can really know the future because you still are making choices, aren't you? We're all making choices.
Yeah.
So let us make conscious, healthy choices. I need to maybe learn not to use my TV or my cell phone as much and go for a walk. I need to read more than just YouTube or WhatsApp and go and actually read a book about 5G. Get the perspective of both sides of the story, as they say on RJR FM. It's important because you will always tend to believe something you already believe. And the bad part about that is if the situation changes or there's something you didn't really look at carefully, beliefs can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Where because I think cars are too dangerous, and when cars were first put on the road, there was legislation in some parts of the U.S. and other parts of the world against the use of the automobile, that it would blow up, that people racing would become delirious and permanently insane. People are writing this in official newspapers, the New York Times, and so forth. So what I'm saying, knowing that history, is why I'm moving with more caution than some would expect, given my preference for natural modes of being and learnings and so forth. But yet, to control something, you must know what it is. And the only way you're going to master something is actually having the courage to confront it on its own ground, not by running into just a circle of people who keep confirming what you already know. It's an exciting time, despite the dangers and the threats that we are. Obviously, Corona is a real danger. All right. Obviously, there are countries, and it's on record, that will spy and look into people's phones and involve themselves in trying to steal military secrets and so forth. But hasn't this always been the case? People have always been people. But you don't have to be. You can become a better kind of person. In other words, what we call it is Sankofa. Go back and get from the past the wisdom to meet current day situations. And it's mathematics, really. Pythagoras is the first European to use the word mathematicos, and he studied in Egypt for 22 years, where they described the science of numbers and measuring and the cosmos and the design of the temples and the pyramids, Ma'at. Now, I'm saying that because Ma'at is right thinking. When you think in a way that you look at reality, you use your wisdom, your spiritual. I'm not telling anyone that they don't believe in God. It is central to the African world that there is a creator, that there is more than just the five senses. And my scientific training has actually helped me to appreciate spiritual wisdom, the Bible, Ma'at, Buddhism, even more. No?
Yeah.
Let me say this. Learn what radiation can do to a human being and protect yourself. If you believe you live near a cell phone tower, unless, LOL, if you live underneath high-power electrical voltage cables, you will probably get sick over a length of time. Do what you need to do to protect yourself. Most countries in the world have standards based on published scientific research that prescribes building things that can hurt people and all of that. But we know some countries haven't paid attention and have poisoned their air and their water. Not picking on any country in particular. But why don't we just start to do what we've already said we were going to do? You know? The United Nations has published human rights. People have written on these issues long before the cell phone. If ever in the world's recent history we needed to be conscientious for ourselves, it's now. And that means positive thinking for me.
Yes, and I think also there is, and when we talk about the spirituality, the return to self, the return to nature. In the few minutes that I have left with you, which is about 2 minutes, Prof. I wanted you from your own particular space of being a quantum theorist, to talk to us about vibrational frequency, and I know you don't have much time to do that, but how we can even tap into that element of self. You talked a while ago about light, and we're emitting light, and from that space, even as we go into this unknown, but still known period.
Right.
Yes.
Well, first of all, a lot of the things that I've seen published, even on YouTube, are relatively correct, given the state of the most advanced research in physics on biological energy fields. In particular, there's a book called The Field, that I recommend to our listeners, among others.
Could you say that again?
The Field, F-I-E-L-D.
The Field, F-I-E-L-D.
It is written from the point of view of a trained scientist. However, it does talk about Tai Chi, the aura, ancient ideas that there can be energetic influences and so forth. What I'm referring to then is the research that says quantum entanglement appears to actually affect biological systems, not just atomic systems.
Mm-hmm.
So a person who prays and focuses on healing, and someone in the room is sick,
mm-hmm.
there is empirical evidence that has shown a healing effect.
Mm-hmm.
And thus, as a scientist, I know there are other scientists who have counter-experiments and so forth, but I want to alert the listening audience to the fact that this is not pseudoscience anymore.
Yes.
When the question that maybe is still up in the air is it magnetism? Is it just electromagnetic in nature?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it actually a quantum level effect?
Mm-hmm.
And it's ongoing research. There's what you see, when science says these are the laws of physics, that means most of the community agrees based on experiments and trials and all kinds of things like that. This topic we're discussing is not yet a conclusive, result.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of research going on, and a lot of it does confirm the worldview that if we can all be less negative, especially now, looking at COVID every day, the body count, please remember, as a man thinketh, so it shall be.
So what you believe then? What you believe then, Prof, and what you think changes your biology, your body.
Yes, we know for a fact that the psychosomatic effect, which has been noted in medicine for hundreds of years, that appears to be a real effect that you can, by your mind, by prayer, some people, they do it by meditation, actually change the alkalinity of your blood from one pH level to another, alter your heart rate and your brain waves, and even ultimately regenerate cells that were dying.
So by that same thinking,
is a big thing in science today.
But by that, but you have to come back. By that same thinking, it means that one can affect another person just by being in the field.
Yes, but please remember, I didn't actually say, no one has yet made statements like the distance, frequency, or whether it's something that's cumulative over time, or whether it's something that we know occurs, but it's so non-linear and anomalous that we can't really control it and reproduce the effects under so-called controlled conditions. That's how open that area of research still is. I would recommend to people to engage in more positive, love, community-centered activity and less paranoia and all of that, because that will have an effect of making us all a more, less healthy, right? So let's be careful with that.
Right, and be careful of your environment and your environment.
Who you hang around. If you hang around people consistently who are negative in that they deny, they're about violence or promoting abuse, it does have a negative effect on your health. There's extensive research, in particular, as I said, the book The Field will talk about it, and from there it has hundreds of websites and links are in that book, many of which many of our listeners may actually know of. And you can help yourself right now by learning to relax, learning to breathe, learning to focus on affirmative, spirit-centered, whatever your personal beliefs are, that in such a way that you can shift your own world right where you are, where you are, sitting in your house. You can shift that. I'm not saying you're going to change your whole world in 5 minutes. One has to act on what one thinks. I don't really believe in this snap finger magic stuff. But you do have to work physically, emotionally, and mentally too. And that I believe that is what we are doing. Alright? There can be an even more positive outcome than even all of us could have dreamed. But we all need to make those healthy choices.
Professor, thank you so much. I have to leave it here. I'm so sorry. We have been talking for a while, but you know how it is when we talk. We always need more time. But thank you so much. You've been a great help in this space. Thank you so much.
By the Creator and the ancestors, KABU MAAT.
All right, give thanks. Professor Patton Duncan, Professor KABU MAAT. He, of course, a quantum physicist, a mathematician, and widely published, well recognized, well respected in his field, looking at the science of it all. Sound judgment, remember we said that? Sustained attention, sound judgment, evidence-based debate and assessments. That is what take place in this space. Now, there is room for perception. And perception from a scientific perspective. Yeah, I did say that. Perception and science in the same line. So we want to talk about that next time. Perception and science. If we don't do it next week, we'll do it very soon. But that's where we're going next. But remember, as we talk about perception, epictetus, appearances to the mind, are of 4 kinds. Things either are what they appear to be, or they neither are nor appear to be, or they are and do not appear to be, or they are not and yet appear to be. Rightly to aim in all these cases is a wise woman's choice. All right, you're inside of the Africa Forum. It is Running African.
Variety is the spice of life, and Rainforest Seafoods brings you the widest and best choices of fish and seafood. Flash frozen to seal in all the natural goodness until ready to cook. It's really fresher than fresh. That's a fish fact from Rainforest Seafoods, fresh from the ocean.
All right, we're making way now for the big news coming up next inside of the Sunday Sunshine. I want to say thanks to all those who participated in the program this morning. Thank you so much for being part of the experience. Thanks also to my broadcast assistant. I'm just wondering who that might come in. You know, here's social distancing, man. Physical distancing, man. Yeah, man. Come on. You got so close that I almost jumped out of my skin. Just make sure you don't sneeze or cough. Good to see you, though. Good to see you. The Big A is up next. It's not you in for Big A, right? But no Big A is here. We know we're going chatting as well, me and you. All right. So thanks to my broadcast assistant, Shamara Preston. I want to say a very, very pleasant morning to Trevor Forrest. Trevor, my apologies. It happened with you last week, so we had to cancel someone and here it because we had to give you extra time, and now it is you again who we call back this week. But you see how it is going, and I know that you understand, so my apologies so much. Thank you so much, Professor KABU MAAT. Thank you so much, Everton Bailey Ruggs. Thank you. Thank you. Really appreciate you coming on and helping us to understand a bit more of what's going on around us. My name is KABU MAAT KHERU. Thank you for listening on the 107s. I see you. I see you. Thank you for participating. I see you participating in every single space where you know I am. And I see your responses. I know that there are still many, many questions, and we'll continue to try to answer those questions in these spaces. Hopefully next week we'll have a chance to lock in with you and have a conversation with you. We hope to open the phone lines next week and just have a nice little chat. All right, take care of yourselves. Boost your immune system. Exercise. If you can't go out, just do a part together. A part together. A part together. And stretch. Do some stretches. If you have a skipping rope, if you don't have a skipping rope, remember WIS? WIS, them call it, but WIS we call it. You remember WIS is the same thing we usually use to make the chair them. Right? What them call them chair there again? No WIS we usually make the chair. What chair them again? Jesus be gay. No WIS we usually... No WIS, what is up name where you make... Yeah man, but them have a better name for it. Where you use make chairs, man. Wick. Thank you, Big A. Wicker. Thank you so much. So you use a wicker or the WIS and skip with it and do your stretches and so on. Do your deep breathing for the time being. This is just my thing to you. Don't stay in the house and sit down on the couch and watch TV all day. Come off of the phone for a minute. Come off of the social media for a minute. Walk outside if you can. If you can't walk on the road, walk around the house. If you can't walk around the house, run up and down in the house. But get some exercise. Go outside and look at the sun. Look far out as far as you can look and rest your eyes. And stop the eating. And I'm talking to myself now. All right. See you next week. Thank you, Shamara. My name is Kabu. And the Big A is up next inside of the Sunday Sunshine. Walk good? Tell him